3 and a 2 and a 1. Hello and welcome to episode 170 of the Naked Tech Podcast. It's a show that gives you everything you need to know about consumer tech, the internet, and all about smashing those flags. I'm your friend
My
Jeff
name is
Kim.
Kelvin Lee, and this episode is all about me picking apples.
Picking apple, yes, out in Bilpin. I see what you did there. I definitely stuffed up that intro. We're gonna keep it though, I think, because I can't be bothered replaying it. My cat went.
I thought the timing was perfect,
and I
though.
didn't adjust the
Good
volume.
on Felicia.
Okay.
Great timing. She can't even hear the music, and she
And I forgot
could
to adjust the
chime in.
volume.
It's amazing.
Yes. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Bit rusty.
Yeah.
Just feeling a little bit.
Yeah,
Just
just
feeling a
get
bit.
it
I don't
out.
know. What's the word?
Just get it out.
Just get it out. Let's get it out. Shake it all
Yeah.
about.
So went
Do the
to
hokey
Bilpin,
Mm.
with the kids on the weekend. Went to pick some apples, and here we are recording an episode about Apple. So I thought that was funny.
This is what I call dedication for the podcast, Kelvin. You just did some extra research on
You
Apple.
can actually eat too many
by picking
apples, I found out.
Okay. So, let me just to back up on that. I'm thinking lots of pink ladies.
Oh, yeah, look, my kid's 4 years old. She she loves the whole pink lady concept because it's pink. And yeah, it was all pink ladies.
It's 50% of her spelling abilities.
Yes, that is right. Pink and the word and.
And now Apple. Okay, well, speaking of, we've had a couple of weeks of Apple-a-thon. I think we'd like to, with these Apple events, rather than just coming out the day later and talking about all those, product launches, Tim Cook stuff, we'd like to let it settle a little bit and see what comes out of it. What you shake things up. People are, tearing things apart. So I think that's where we're at, Kelvin.
I think the first 10, 20 videos you see on YouTube are people talking about the event rather than actually having the product in hand. And now it's been a good 2-3 weeks now. People have played with all the things they've seen at the event, and they can tell us what they really think. And here we are. We're gonna go through a lot of that, and we're gonna tell you things that we may or may not buy and what we think about everything.
All right. So I'm not really sure where to start with this one. Let's just maybe talk about the highlights or the announcements, the big ones, what we call Apple's spring-loaded event, iPad Pro, M1 chip on an iPad Pro. What do we think about that?
The iPad for me has never been about power. Have you ever? When was the last time you got a brand new iPad? You're playing a game, or you're watching videos, or you're calling your mom, and you thought to yourself, you know what? I need more juice. I need more power here. So, I wonder what's going to come for the iPad Pro. Do you think that developers will start building apps that are more resource hungry to do more things? Do you think that's where this is going?
I mean, potentially, depends on your use case. If you're part of the creative community, then absolutely. It's going to push a lot more processing throughput with all your illustrations, video editing, whatnot, even audio editing. We'll go back to that in a second. But even recording audio, even being able to record and stream at the same time, perhaps. All those multitasking goodness. So we're going to explore that in a second. But I mean, you probably make a good point. Maybe once upon a time, even the early adopters of the world and Apple fanboys would get iPads, every year as they release, but that's less of a thing these days. Even the I don't know who are the guys on The Verge, Nilay and the other dude with the glasses.
That guy.
Dieter. They're not even getting iPads every year. So if they're not, I don't think many people are. I mean, I've got my situation is an iPad Pro, which is the second generation of that. So it still has the fingerprint. Oh, does it have the fingerprint? Wait,
It
it does,
does. It
doesn't it?
does. It
Yes, it
does. It
does have the
does. Yeah. Yeah.
fingerprint. It's not the full body one, and the Face ID. But I still do some work on that. I like the first generation Apple Pencil. I like to use that for a little bit of work, drawing concepts, bit of whiteboarding. Um, yeah, so I think it still does a job, but like I think if you're actually prepared to replace some of the other Apple product lines with this one device, is it a tablet? Is it a laptop? Is it a, I don't know, like a plaything?
Uh,
Those lines are sort of being blurred right
yeah,
now.
and it's going to get even blurrier. But it comes down to your use case. And we've been talking about this before we start recording the show about whether you could use an iPad to record the show. And there's going to be limitations. We do a fair bit with audio manipulation in terms of using Skype or recording via that. And then we're using OBS on my end to record that and push that to Twitch. And then later I do that on YouTube. And you're playing clips through, a piece of software on the Mac that does all that audio routing for you. So I don't think the iPad Pro can do a lot of that multitasking, a lot of that audio manipulation, because it is just not that kind of machine. And if someone were to come to me and go, "Hey, I need a computer," I'm always going to recommend the M1 Mac over the iPad Pro, um, because you get to do so much more on the M1 Mac. So it really depends on what you want to use it for. If you are a artist, a graphics designer, you like the Apple Pencil, and you like that portability, then for sure get the iPad Pro.
I think the question is, yeah, can that replace your sort of the older MacBooks? Definitely your iMacs, because my situation is that I have a 2012 iMac, which I'm actually using right now to record this podcast. I call it my podcast machine. It's a single use machine right now for me. So okay, maybe that's a good segue to introduce the new iMacs, also running M1s. These come in 7 different colors. Sort of going back to the original iMacs with that big LCD. I don't know what do you call that? LCD? What do you, the big
Flat.
TV technology from the 80s.
Yeah,
Not so
no,
flat.
it wasn't. Yeah, it's huge, right? I mean, the screen now, you
Yeah.
get a lot more because everything's just so thin. Look at them doing this little dance here on the website. Um, it always concerns me when Apple focuses so much on color. I feel like they're trying to
Hmm.
take your attention away from the lack of, in this case, innovation. Really, um, you know, the,
Ooh,
yeah,
harsh, but fair.
because this is still the same M1 chip in the MacBook and the MacBook Pro, and now the iPad Pro, and now they put it in the biggest device in their lineup, but no real change to the form factor. Don't get me wrong though; it's a beautiful device. Like if you put this at any design studio or the front desk of any company, it would look really nice. They upped the webcam to 1080p, which took them, it's 10 years too late, if you ask me. Obviously, there's a lot of, processing that happens in the background, and that's very unique to just, the Apple Mac. But does anything here
Hmm.
really stand out hardware wise besides the color? Not really.
Well, I think it's your sort of family PC, right? Just something that's sort of maybe in the living room. It's not your primary device, but something for the family. Um, Perhaps like for me, it might be a single use thing as well. So, iMac is a definite option for me as well. Would I use it for more than using podcasts? Possibly. I am like I did buy another microphone. So this right now, this red one on the screen, this is a Blue Yeti, which is probably like about 10 years old now, I think. But it's still, the standard. It's quite big. It's not so portable. So I did invest in a new Rode microphone. the NT Mini, I believe it's called. I'm gonna pick that up probably tomorrow from the shops. But yeah, like I guess I'm looking for a way to record in other places. Um, yeah, so that's why I did that. So I feel like if I got an iMac as well, that kind of like defeats the purpose for that, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the MacBook, the M2 or M1X MacBooks may be announced. I think when's the next announcement? I think WWDC, which is
September,
probably
June. Yeah.
June.
Um, yeah, I think
Yeah.
everyone's waiting for that. I know I have a lot of colleagues who are
Mm,
waiting for that before they replace their Intel-based MacBook Pros with that because the Intel ones are starting to show their age, and everyone's oohing and eyeing over the M1 processor, so they can't wait. Um,
hmm
I like how you mentioned that use case around this being the family computer because one of the demos in the event was that the camera can now follow you. And the demo that they had was there was this dad, I think, doing some cooking while, doing some video conferencing, and they were moving around and it was following them. So they expect this computer to be sitting on the kitchen bench somehow. People can move it around, like, and use it. It's a very weird proposition.
It is kind of like a giant iPad, isn't it?
It was a giant stationary iPad.
Just from
Yeah.
yeah, with a fixed stand that you can't take off. Um, yeah. I mean, like I think it's less likely that I'll get the iMac. But I think, like say if my parents were for some reason in a Apple ecosystem, then I might think about it. They're definitely not right now, but I think affordable. Well, pricing wise, if we just sort of touch on that
Hmm.
for a little bit. Curiously, the iPad Pros are priced cheaper than these iMacs. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, just in terms of cost of manufacturing, I mean, these iMacs will cost a lot more, um, because there's just less supply for LCD panels, and there's more demand for iPads. So they're going to make more money off the iPads anyway. And a lot of people have
Mm-hmm.
spoken about this. You wouldn't get the base model iMac because it's got almost no USB ports. It's only got two Thunderbolt USB ports, and that's it. So definitely get the mid tier one at $300 more, where you get more connectivity, and you get the gigabit Ethernet that comes on the power brick, and you get one more GPU core. So please, if you're thinking of getting an iMac, get at least the middle one, the middle of the range one, because that base one is bare.
Yeah, so that's gonna set you back $2,200
Hmm.
Australian. But you do get 7 colors. I don't know if you went for a color, what would you go for,
I
Kelvin?
really like this orange. Yeah, I
Ooh.
really like this. Wait, this orange. This orange. Yeah, I like the orange.
I'm gonna have to go
This one.
red. I think
Yes.
the red looks hot, especially from the
It's
back.
called it's called
Maybe not so
pink,
much from the front.
Jeff, on the Apple website.
Pink from the front. Oh,
No, it's dual
okay.
tone. It's pink on the front and
Well,
deep red at the
maybe
back.
maybe one for your eldest, Kelvin.
I'm not getting my 4-year-old a $2,200 computer. Okay, not gonna happen. She
Okay,
gets my
I won't tell her.
hand-me-downs.
Okay.
That's about it.
Now, with those two devices, before we move on, I guess the M1 chip is the hero for that. So, yep, there's a little bit of, I mean, the chassis of obviously the iMac is a new thing, but iPad, I think it's slightly thicker, if anything. There were reports that the what do we call the Magic Keyboard that was released last year with the iPad Pros, which it's going to set you back another $500 if you get that. There were reports that these new generation 12.9-inch ones, the bigger ones at least, would not fit compatible. But I do like Apple sort of came out and made this very weird statement, and I'm going to try to read this. I did put a clip. Well, I did put a note in Notion there, Kelvin. Um, So let me just see if I can find this. So the first generation of the Magic Keyboard is functionally compatible with the new iPad Pro 12.9-inch, which is the fifth generation. Due to the slightly thicker dimensions of this new iPad Pro, it's possible that the Magic Keyboard may not precisely fit when closed, especially when screen protectors are applied. So about as vague as you
It's a
can
yes or
get.
no
Uh,
question. So
no, it's a maybe, possibly,
they've
possibly,
tested this. So
maybe.
what are they afraid of, you think? They
I feel like
rushed.
it's a bit trial
Yeah.
and error. I think well that last bit about the screen protectors. So I'm guessing most iPad users have a screen protector now, and maybe for that use case, it's a bit iffy, and maybe it depends on the brand of screen
So just
protector.
say it works without a screen protector. Like, why go through the whole effort of maybe, maybe not? The wind is blowing the right direction. It might fit. It's odd.
I mean, yeah, I feel like this is a very un-Apple thing. So
I
I don't
think
know.
my
It's
suspicion is
it's
when they were
odd.
testing it, it failed 2% of the time. And they're covering their behinds just in case that 2% eventuates. And they didn't have time to work out
Mm.
a way to make it happen. And this is what you get. You're right. Like, this is not a polished statement. So I think things were left on the cutting. Just things were left on the.
I mean, it's either that or it's too
Mm.
polished, right? So like by committee type of thing, and maybe like there's several legal departments, fighting for the right words here. But yeah, let's just step over that and go into AirTags. Actually, before we do that, I did have a couple of fun clips. And I mean, this is one of the first things I thought about too after this event. And here is John Prosser, our favorite leaker of Apple things, with this question.
What if? What if the iPhone 13 had an M1 chip in it?
What do you think,
I
Calvin?
don't see what's the big deal. So
What's the big
what if they have
deal?
an M1? An M1, the M1 chip,
It's just the label,
wasn't
like,
the M1 chip just a
mm.
souped up version of the A13?
Well, the iPhone 12 has the
14? Yeah.
A14, right? Yeah, I mean the architecture, like I mean I can't really talk about the architecture. I would say it's at least similar, and we've seen, now that the iPad Pros have the M1 chip, and even the operating system wise, there's a bit of a crossover between iOS and macOS. Eventually, macOS might have a touchscreen. Like, I mean, that's probably for another episode. But yeah, why not? You know, Apple's producing their own silicon with their own architecture, or are they using some other architecture? Maybe you could clarify there
The
if you
but
know.
the Apple iPhones have always used their own silicon. I
Hmm.
In fact, the M1 chips are designed to be a lot bigger, obviously, because they have 8 cores,
Mm.
up to 8 cores for the GPU and the CPU. So that's a very strange sort of theory to be even discussing. They're both totally different use cases. I mean, mobile
Hmm.
processors are designed to be um, more efficient, energy efficient, and obviously there's a lot more technology that goes into it. It's like saying, why wouldn't you put a Qualcomm 888 into a PC? I feel like that is the conversation that needs to happen, not so much the other way
Okay.
around. It's like, what if
Yeah. Well,
what
I
if we
think
put an
you've
Intel
yeah
processor in a
you've
phone?
kind of like.
It's like, why?
Well, you knocked it
Yeah.
on the head there. So let's get John to answer himself.
I reached out to a source, the good source, the source that has never been wrong, and I asked if this might be a thing that maybe, kind of, potentially might be happening. Are we getting an M1 chip in the iPhone 13? And according to them, nope, no, not a thing. The new iPhone will ship with an A15 as expected.
I I think we'll have a separate episode on this, but I think John is losing his marbles.
He's got no eyebrows.
Yeah, I think
Anyway.
he's slowly losing his edge. I had to unsubscribe. I just can't do it anymore. I think there's very little coming out of the rumor mill, and everything is hyped up. But anyway, that's a different conversation for a different day.
Um, I do have a love-hate relationship with him because, yes, okay, I do have a relationship with him. I just admitted it, but he does get a few things right. but like a lot of it is kind of like you have to filter out the really
Mm.
crappy, bad humor, sort of bad attempt at humor, just like that one. But yeah, I mean, I just put that in because I actually thought, yeah, I think that there's a chance, but then I think you make a good point. Like, does it even matter? Like, it's things are merging anyway, so it's really
Yeah,
semantics
it
at
should be
this
the other
point.
way around. Like, would the A15 end up in the MacBook? Yay. And then we call it the M2.
Hey, yeah, okay,
Sure.
hmm, sure. Did we figure out what the M stands for?
Monopoly?
Mac OS. Go to
Yeah.
jail. Okay. All right, AirTags. All right,
Yeah, for me,
finally
this was the
AirTags.
highlight.
Okay, so I feel like yes, I was
Mm.
just about to say. Highlight. I mean, no surprises really.
The biggest
Um,
surprise was
you
the
know,
$500 Hermes keychain.
well, even
Yeah,
that's not a
actually, no,
really a
actually, you're
surprise,
right.
but I mean, funnily enough, it was the thing that John Prosser leaked a few months earlier. It was the exact same renders. But here we are. This is the world. This is the way of the world right now. Um, I mean, no surprise in the functionality. I do have a theory on why it kind of took so long. I don't think it was a technology problem. It was more of a, well, how the hell do we use this thing problem, and use case thing. So okay, we're gonna break that down a little bit. I don't know, what are your first impressions? Like, were you happy with it? Will you get, the 4 pack?
So I use a towel
Um,
now on my keys,
oh, you do?
and
Okay.
I lose them all the time, and it's an amazing function, right? But this
Hmm.
will clean up the competition. Then we'll talk about that.
Mm,
We'll talk about why soon, but I think we need to
okay.
go through what it is exactly.
What are the differences then? Let's start
Yeah,
with that.
the biggest difference between this and the towel is it uses nearby iPhones to to provide its location. And I think there was a really recent Marquez video where he talked about Tile versus the Apple tags. And in a place like Sydney, where the country has a very small population when you compare it to anyone else, in my building, in my apartment right now, what are the chances of someone having another Tile? Close to zero. What are the chances of someone around me having an iPhone? Almost 100%. So, just for the functionality of putting it in my bag, I lose my bag on a train, someone finds it, and I can actually use that proximity feature, regardless of where I am, bouncing off other iPhones to give me a location. That alone in
Mm.
itself will beat everybody else.
Yeah. So I mean, there's I feel like for your house keys or your set of keys, that's more for like where you've put it inside the
Hmm.
house, right? Like it's kind of like if you left it somewhere, that's probably like a very rare case. So you have to rely on other people to be near with their iPhones. So I think they're two very different use cases. Now, I think the other thing that they've really thought hard about, and they probably had these things out there with the employees, just testing it out, because there's the stuff that you don't know about. So like you're in a apartment block, and if the thing is based on GPS, like someone below you would, like, if I don't know, somehow your house keys are in the apartment block below you.
Yeah,
I
like
don't know
in
how
the
that
courtyard.
happens. What
Yeah.
happens then?
Um,
Yeah.
so it would so as you ping it, it will constantly use iPhones around it to sort of echolocate its location and you can find it. So the moment it goes out of range of Bluetooth, it starts using the other iPhones to send out its location that you can pick up via the app.
But if the location is directly below you or above you,
Well, at
then how
least you
does it?
know it's in a proximity near you, and then when you get into Bluetooth range again, it starts showing you that funky arrow here, for example.
Mm,
So you've got to be pretty close to actually for this feature where it actually an arrow would come up and it tells you to go left or right and how far you are for that to kick in. That's my understanding of it.
Would it have like a up down direction as well as
I don't know.
left
I think that's a
left
very
right?
good
Hmm.
use case. Like if I drop my keys down 3 floors, how does it know what the maybe
Oh,
yeah.
I've got a good one. I've got a good one. You've accidentally put your keys in the rubbish and it's down the rubbish chute. Garbage chute.
Ooh. Oh, can you imagine
No?
you go into the garbage room and it's like it's in
Didn't
there.
didn't Adam Curry do this once?
I
I
think
think I
so.
heard a story from Adam Curry about his hearing aids,
Yeah, but
maybe.
it will only get better.
Okay.
And I think
Yeah.
where I want to see this technology go is have these chips small enough to fit into your AirPods, to your MacBook, to your
Mm.
iPad, to your anything, and then that's when it becomes the big winner.
And I think if once these things get smaller as well. Now the downside of these things getting smaller, and I have a feeling they've kept it at this size for a reason. I think the technology, if they just like use the technology, I think they could have miniaturized it a little bit more. But I think there's the element of like, what if you put one of these tags on someone that you want to stalk,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So they've thought about that. So they have an anti-stalk feature, and I've got a number of clips to talk
Let's
about
do
that.
it.
So the first thing is they didn't touch on this on the keynote as much, but a lot of it comes from what it does in terms of beeping. So let me just play this one. It's from MacBreak Weekly.
They're very sound focused, meaning that your little thing is going to be making noise as you're trying to find it. And at the same time, that also means I can't hide this in someone's bag or something like that. There's no way to do that because
that's
it'll
important.
Be making noise.
There was fear that people could pop it into somebody's purse and stalk them.
Yeah. So if you know, if it's found, because the other feature is that it'll alert you. So you might not be connected to an AirTag, but if someone else's AirTag is just like following you around and it's not yours, the phone will tell you as well as the thing beeping.
Unless you have an Android device, you're screwed.
So you're gonna know. Okay, well, I've got another clip on the Android. This is somewhat related. So this is actually Marquez talking about, you know, the use case for Android phones.
If I happen to find this AirTag, I just saw it on a train or something, and I have an Android phone, I can scan this AirTag just like any other NFC tag. And it'll pop up and actually bring up a website that shows me the phone number and the message that was left on that AirTag. Then hopefully I'll call that number, maybe text you and get it back to you.
I mean, so it doesn't really help you if you're being stalked, I guess, in that case. But like, yeah, if that use case is like if someone with an Android finds a random AirTag, it's like, well, what do I do with it? It's kind of like how you you know, on your airport luggage, you might put a label, your home address or your phone number. So it's kind of like that, right? You find this random thing, this AirTag might be attached to something else as well, and you're just a good Samaritan, and you want to contact that person. That this is how you would do with an Android phone.
And I feel like that's going to start a whole new interaction for a lot of people who aren't used to tapping their phone on objects to learn more about it. You know, I think this will help push that piece of NFC that is not being used at all. The other angle about its size is the reason why it is of that size is because of the replaceable battery. It's your typical CR2032 battery that you use in toys. Yeah.
Oh, that one.
I think it is. Could be wrong, but
yeah, I think I did hear that. I think it's the same one as the one you get on your Apple TV remote, which is another thing that came out. We don't need to cover that actually, but okay, let's go back to the anti-stalk feature. I've got Dave 2D talking about another use case, and I just like been collecting them these things in the last couple of weeks, and I guess those are our big guys, Dave 2D and Marquez. So here's Dave with his sultry voice.
By having this checkpoint so that you have to get home before it does this notification.
Oh, right. I think I was going to set this up. Sorry. so the other thing that they introduced is that, if you're being stalked, or even if you have stolen something and you're a thief, Apple have decided to not alert you straight away if something is following you. So for the stalker or the stalkee, you're being stalked for a few minutes. So that's sort of the trade-off for that. But if you're a thief, so imagine you're stealing someone's bike, and the owner has put like an AirTag, like at the bottom, below the seat, for example, just to hide it away. But if the thief was alerted straight away, then they'll probably like, okay, I'm going to look for this AirTag and chuck it so that the owner can't find the thief. But this is what I'll just go back to the start for that clip. But Dave 2D will be talking about that use case.
By having this checkpoint so that you have to get home before it does this notification, it removes a whole bunch of false negatives, right? If you're on a public transportation, anything like a plane or a train, or places where there's a lot of AirTags, potentially a lot of AirTags, you would just get notifications like crazy. Even if you go to school, like what if there's all these kids whose parents stuff AirTags into them?
Which is definitely going to happen. You're going to be putting AirTags on your kids' school bags so you can track them. But yeah, like I guess people thought that there was going to be like a 20 to 30-minute delay before someone gets notified, but it's actually based on your location. So like your phone, I guess iOS devices, knows your home location based on your contact list, or I guess just from previous behavior. Everything's on device, and it's only then it will alert you to help with these use cases.
This is getting me thinking. At the moment, Apple can only track one location. In the future, when you have 12 of these, it pretty much knows where your secondary metadata is. So for example, I put it into my kids' bag so that if, I know where my kids are. So at any one point, Google has a picture of what everyone is doing at that single point in time. It's not just about a singular device tracking this one person. It's about his or hers 6 degrees of separation, right? Like of connections. So at any one point, Kelvin goes to work 9 to 5. His wife does work from 3 to 6. His kid goes to this school. They live in this suburb. Collectively, they do this. When they come together, they spend 20 minutes together eating ice cream. It's an insane amount of information, even if it's unidentifiable.
Apple the kind of company to use that data, sell to third parties, that sort of thing?
I don't think I mean, the rumors of an Apple ad network has been around for a while. I think they'll just get better at targeting me. I don't think it's going to be ads. I think it'll be products. I think it'll be other things. I mean, don't forget Apple has a credit card, so that's another source of information. It's just they can collect the data now and then elegantly work in a solution that will use that data somehow, but they're going to use it somehow.
Possibly not in the Google and Facebook way, though, right? So yeah, I think you're right. They will use that data. Like, I mean, I don't know, maybe I've drunken the Kool-Aid a little bit too much, but I feel like they won't have these nefarious, or like, I wouldn't say what Facebook and Google are doing are nefarious, but like that's just their business model, and they're kind of clear with that messaging. Apple is like they're positioning themselves as a privacy first company, so I feel like there's more things they're hiding. The credit card's an interesting one. What if there was some sort of similar chip, like for the physical credit card, like an AirTag in a credit card?
Yeah, I mean, like in my mind, like they have your heart rate, they now have your location, they have the location of your car, they have the location of your most prized possessions, be it keys, God knows what else you want to tag this onto, your bag. That's the other scenario. Airports,
and they probably,
right?
yeah, and I think Yes, and I think just with the family stuff, just with all the things that they've done with the family, like the credit card is a family credit
Mm.
card now. So if you have a bad credit history, like none of this applies in Australia, but at least in the US, yeah, you can kind of like fix your partner's bad credit history by getting a family credit card or something like
That's
that,
just
which is apparently an industry first. Anyway, this is probably a good segue then to talk about ATT, app tracking transparency. Unless you had something
no.
else,
I'm
Calvin.
just wondering whether we have time to cover that today. But I think we should talk about it.
Oh,
I think it's I think iOS 14.5.1 is
mhm.
probably gathering a lot of news right now, and Facebook are fighting back hard.
Yeah. I mean, I have 3 clips from the 2-minute ad that they did, and I've embedded the YouTube in the Notion, so maybe you can just play that while we're
Mhm.
talking about this. But and it's a very polished thing and very believable. Like if you're just a lay person, not connected with the ad industry at all or in marketing in any way, like you'll be like, oh, Apple, I like it. I like what you're doing here. Now, should I play these clips? I think this is a good setup and a good way to pick up on the kind of messaging and the production value, everything, the music, the tone of voice, how it's said, what he said. It's just amazing and perfect. So I just wanted to set this up.
When you're using apps on your iPhone, you may start to see this. It's the new App Tracking Transparency prompt. It's a feature that gives you a choice on how apps use and share your data. Data like your age, location, health information, spending habits, and your browsing history, to name a few.
Yeah, so like you said, with the new iOS 14.5, which was released to the public a couple of weeks ago, and I mean, I actually haven't seen this in action, to be honest, but yeah, you're gonna, as you interact with certain apps, let's say an app that starts with F or I or W, you're gonna get this new prompt saying, "Are you okay to, share this data?" Now this data is, and I forget the name of the actual thing, but like Apple had an API, so it's unidentifiable. I can't say that word. Help me out.
Unidentifiable.
Unidentifiable. Too many beers early at trivia. So they give that to apps. So if one app can track this particular person to another app, for example, and that was just happening in the background. And Apple had this API. I guess Apple have decided to draw a line in the sand, saying, "Well, no, we think the users have the right to choose to give up that data." And this is what that prompt is from that first clip. The second one, I don't know what the second one is, but here it is.
But some apps have trackers embedded in them that are taking more data than they need, sharing it with third parties like advertisers and data brokers. They collect thousands of pieces of information about you to create a digital profile that they sell to others.
Yeah, so if you just think about what Facebook is doing, that's really, without saying it, they're kind of like telling you this is what Facebook does and this is how they make billions of dollars. So a part of this is, I think, not Apple just thinking about their users. And I mean, they probably do think about the users sometimes, but I think it's more of a dig into their competitors.
Yeah.
What do you think about that,
I,
Kelvin? Yeah.
I think so, but also Apple must. I think they can probably somehow see the information that's coming out of iPhones and where it's going, etc. And I like to think that Apple has a higher purpose, right? I think just like Google did before the advertising business became so big for them, and maybe they are trying to protect the customer. I think privacy, particularly in the last 10 years and with all that's been happening, is a big big purchasing decision, you know, it's a big factor when people make these decisions about purchasing something these days, and people are getting more, they're getting smarter, they're doing more research about what they're eating and where they're going and how it impacts the environment and their privacy. So this is a good angle for them.
For Facebook, I think it's a double-edged sword, right? So obviously it's gonna, I think they quoted something like they expect 40%, at least 40% of the, iPhone users to tap the not allow. Actually, the next clip is going to actually talk about what that message is, the two choices. But I do have a bit of a problem with what they're saying here.
That's why iPhone users will now be asked a single, simple question. Allow apps to track you or not?
All right. So this message, the prompt, as I call it, is not that. I mean, the essence of it is correct. But they're being very tricky about this because the two choices are ask app not to track or allow, right? Which is actually reverse of what they just said in that clip.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah? Because, okay, let me just quickly play it.
That's why iPhone users will now be asked a single, simple question. Allow apps to track you or not?
Yeah, so like the actual prompt is not that. It's ask app not to track you or allow.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I saw a clip, interview of Craig Federighi around why be so polite? Like, why is the prompt ask app not to, not to track versus allow or disallow? And I think Craig's sort of roundabout way of saying there are some things that that the app needs to track for it to work. There are some apps that just cannot function if they don't track something. So I think it's asking the app to not track certain privacy settings, but not all of it.
Yeah, I think the apps can put in their own message on top of that. So kind of like if you're Facebook, if you're Zuckerberg, it's like, we really need to make become a $1 trillion company by capturing this data from you. So please ask us, allow us to track you. I don't know, whatever the message is, and you got some
Yeah, I've got it
examples
right here. So this one is strange, right? Like surely Facebook isn't so insensitive almost. It basically says that this version of iOS requires us being Facebook, to ask for permissions to track some data from this device to improve your ads. Here are, we use information about activity received from other apps and websites to show you ads that are more personalized. Keep Facebook free of charge. Support businesses that rely on ads to reach their customers. So every news outlet took this and immediately said, Facebook is going to, and Instagram is going to start charging iOS customers if they don't, accept cookies, and, will you pay for Facebook and Instagram? So I don't think they did enough testing on these messaging because everyone's taking it the wrong way. And, I don't think Facebook and Instagram will ever charge, for you to use these apps, but it is asking people to think about it. Like, we've been free for a long time and you've had a lot of, usage out of us. You kind of owe us. I mean, that's the way I'm seeing that middle bullet point. Am I seeing this wrong? Like, that's such it just is not one of the bullet points I think people would even think about when it comes to, whether I should give my privacy to another company. Like, it doesn't benefit me in any way. This is all Facebook.
The other angle that Facebook are kind of like going for is to protect the small businesses that rely on the social graph and whatever network they've built over the years. And no, like it's, I mean, sure, you're not paying anything, but you are paying, you're not paying a fee, but you're paying a lot with your just using the internet. All the footprint that you to make as you browse through the internet. And one of those things is this ID that Apple have been giving up in the background without anyone noticing, except for the app makers. that have been utilizing those APIs, and yeah, just being able to connect you from one app to another. So yeah, like I guess, if given the choice, 99.9% of the population will just say no, like don't track me, because it's very hard for the layperson to connect what you do here with the kind of the quality of ads that you get back, I think. And maybe that's where Facebook is coming from. It's like, well, this is just to give you more relevant ads. Doesn't everyone want that? Everyone's happy, right?
I think you're right. I think people will just say no, and no one's going to care about the quality of the ads that they get. And businesses will just have to find other ways of reaching their audiences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and interesting times, because they are going to war. This is just the beginning, or maybe this is a second parter of a 10-part battle. But I think we're going to see a lot more of this stuff. Facebook versus Apple, Google versus Apple, Facebook versus Microsoft, all these big titans. In the last 18 months, they've grown like crazy. And everyone's kind of like eating into their lunch.
What I want to see is if
So there'll be a lot of jostling.
is if Android will follow down the same route. I don't think Google can afford not to. So I think expect this to see. I probably would expect to see some sort of similar type approach in the next Android operating system update.
Yes. We can probably end it at that one, Kelvin.
Yeah, we hope you enjoyed episode 170. It's not usually all just about apples. If you want to find out more, tune in the next time we have this. And the best way to do it is to check out the website. That's thenakedtagpodcast.com. Subscribe to our podcast so that way you won't miss the next episode. You can watch us on Twitch. You can catch us on YouTube. And that's Kelv out.
That's Jeff out. And by the way, Kelvin, it's not subscribe anymore.
Oh, it's follow?
It's follow podcasts. Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Because, no? Because subscribe is something else now.
Oh, you pay me the money.
Yeah. So a footnote to the 14.5 update is the new podcast app, which is, I guess, the most popular podcasting app.
But that's the thing, though. Like, is the expectation that if you subscribe, you get content on top of what we already have that is just exclusive to people who subscribe?
I think for them, like, subscribing to a podcast means, like Netflix and Disney Plus. Like, you subscribe. It's a subscription thing, so you get some for a fee. You get some, So in the podcast world, I guess that just means like additional content. So like different publications and podcasts have gotten around it by using Patreon and like there's all that sort of stuff, and they can't use the inherent system of podcasts to do that. Now they've allowed that.
Yeah, and Apple will take 30%, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Yeah.
30% of zero is still zero.
Right. I just don't like, especially for us, like I don't see us start, recording separate audios, separate content, just for people who pay. I just don't see, what that would do, and it just isn't what we're about. And I much rather people pay for what they think the value is, and that's why Patreon is a possibility. But to create exclusive content and to shut out a portion of your audience is a big step.
But it could even be like, if you're a like a celebrity or an actor, you could just say, well, everything is paid for. So as a fan, you're just like, well, I'll pay for anything.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
Yeah, so that could be a model as well.
Hopefully you don't worship a celebrity to that point where you're willing to pay just to watch one celebrity do something. It's like watching a TV. It's like, I don't know. It's like the whole platform just for one celebrity. You just won't reach a large enough audience.
So I mean, I did actually. Yeah, so I caught up with a friend earlier today, which I was telling you about. I won't mention the name. Actually, Should I? No, maybe I won't. Common friend, and we was like, oh yeah, what podcast are you listening to? Well, what are you listening to? And we had this a little bit of a debate. It's like, well, I think this person, what you're listening to, is really Audible. I don't think that's a podcast. It's more like a serialized set of episodic stories that you get week to week. But like, you can also binge if you kind of wait till the end, which is like what I do with Audible.
Yeah,
So I can see the subscription model working for that sort of
totally.
stuff.
Like the Serial podcast,
Yeah.
things like that, storytelling podcasts, Limetown. Yeah, I think those.
The Naked Tech podcast, is that one of those?
No, I think if we ever went down the whole, we'll cover only like nuclear power or cover a particular topic that we're totally passionate about, then we could come up with something episodic, like do a Black Mirror type thing, but we would just get out productioned by the people who do Serial and the people who do Limetown and all these big hitters. They've just got teams and teams and teams of people that do all the writing, the scripting, and the production value would just be too high.
Yeah. And, if we get paid for just, having a bit of a chat, a bit of a chin wag, then, lucky us. That's all we can really afford to do right now. So.
And on that note,
yeah,
thank you, Twitch and YouTube.
Oh,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye. That